welcome to the Union Fitness Studios. This is the Union Fitness Podcast. Here I am flying somewhat solo this week. No CEJ because we got sick of him. We threw him out of the studios. He's no longer permitted back. So your host, Todd Hammer, minus CEJ, with our trusty partner in crime over here, my man Josh.
How you doing?
Running the mic. Today we have MT Eisner, strength coach from Colorado, the Buffaloes, the Buffs.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys?
Good. Usually I start out by saying, hey, I've known this person 20 years and all these, and I tell stories about like, hey, we were having a beer at the conference at CSCCA 5 years. I don't have any of those stories to start us out with.
Fresh face.
Yeah, because we, had a mutual friend, and Scott Caulfield, who's strength coach at Colorado College, good friend of both of ours, and he texted me. He's like, "Hey, I have someone you should have on." I said, "Let's go. Let's do it." So we're here. So welcome to the Union Fitness Podcast room.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm gonna do trivia with you. Start. Do you know anything about Union Fitness?
I Googled the heck out of you guys yesterday. It looks well run ship over there.
Obviously, she knows nothing about us, Josh, because this ship is like the Titanic. We're sinking. We got this podcast.
You're just becoming a content brand instead of a gym. You have a photographer now. You have a podcast.
Yeah, we don't really care about training anymore. We've given up on that end of the job. We had a really nice table in here for podcasting until we cracked it. Now there's
the power lifters got a hold of it.
Basically.
I was gonna say, did you have like too much Bill's Mafia in there? What's going on?
Yeah, we were just in here benching one day in the podcast room.
Yeah.
And things got a little weird.
That sounds like another day that ends in Y to me.
Yeah, that's right. Well, how are things in Colorado? Is it snowing today?
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's like 63 out today. January is always our best winter month, I would say. It's always cool, super warm, and then we get dumped on in February and March.
Here's what I know about Colorado. It's either 70 and sunny or 8 and snowy. Does that sound about right?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll say.
All right. Well, because that's what Scott tells me. That's all I know about Colorado. I am coming out this summer to do some mountain biking, but that's for another.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Eventually we're going to get to questions, but I'm just going to start by ranting. I bought a van today as a third car.
You actually bought it?
Yeah, I bought a van. I drove it.
For what purpose?
To mountain bike more.
Oh, I thought you were going to maybe write candy on the side of it. And...
Trust me, we have enough shady-looking characters in this gym. We've talked about some shady things. But, no, I have a tent that goes off the back, and I'm going to go mountain biking more. And it's the one thing my wife told me yes to. In the history of our relationship, Josh is good friends with my wife, and he knows that she is not a nice person. Just mean.
I would say that I'm just terrified of your wife. And that's how this podcast started, was our mutual fear of your wife.
She doesn't listen, thank God. Well, welcome to the podcast. Maybe we can talk about lifting or something. So
my husband won't listen either, so we can talk about spouses if we want.
Nice. He's a terrible person.
Again, though, out of the 7 shows I do, this is the one my wife does listen to.
Lovely young lady.
We'll just leave her out of it. But
Josh, what is it about the podcast and that draws her in?
She's actually interested in the content of this one.
She's a power lifter.
There you go.
Former power lifter.
We'll talk about vans more then. Sounds exciting.
There you go.
There you go. Vans of shoes and vans you drive.
It's great.
Let's do it.
Double van day.
So, strength coach of Colorado. Go Buffs. How'd you end up there? Tell us your story.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of a roundabout story. I was a Division I soccer player at Fairfield University. Go Stags.
Go Stags.
And, that was my first exposure ever to S&C. And
who was your strength coach?
Mark Spellman.
I know Mark. Okay,
yeah. Yeah. So good friend now. But, so kind of first exposure, felt so about it going in and kind of through our training. And by the time I was about a junior, I got really interested in not only training, but in athletics in general. Honestly, I think that, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but I never really thought of working in athletics. It wasn't just like I just played sports. I always played the sports. It was kind of like my thing to go and play college soccer, but you don't really think about it as a business. And I knew I didn't want to be a soccer coach. I actually would have been a very bad soccer coach. It's fine. It's a good thing to admit. So I started talking to Mark a little bit about S&C and mulled around with it. But at that point, so far into my degree, kind of was going a different avenue altogether. So I graduate. I'm living in New York City, working at a publishing house. I was an editor.
Which one?
McGraw-Hill.
Oh, my wife was an editor in New York City once.
That's exciting. Who'd she work?
She worked.
You know? Oh.
I don't remember where she worked in New York.
It was the big one.
She worked for the government when she was in
D.C.
D.C.
Big publishing company in New York.
Penguin, Random House.
Random House?
No. I mean, big. One of the top dogs. I forget.
Anyway.
Not important. It was right on 34th and Madison.
Okay, so I mean, it's like where we were.
Middle Manhattan. Same old stuff.
Yeah. We were in Penn State, and then it moved actually to Rockefeller Center, which was a blast to work in both those places. I lived 2 blocks off of Times Square all 3 years I was there.
Nice. That would be fun.
Fantastic time.
Newberry House?
No, it's a bigger one. He's Googling what are publishing.
What is a book?
What is a book? All right, so you were doing that in New York. How did you become a strength coach, man?
Living that New York lifestyle, and about years in, I'm like, this is not what I'm going to do. So I get back in touch with, Mark and kind of some other individuals in the field and decide to go. I take nighttime classes because I got my degree in communications and journalism, which was not useful to be a strength coach. So took night classes in Brooklyn and eventually got into grad school at University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, UCCS. So my now husband proposed and I said, sweet, we are moving. We're going to Denver. And, kind of in a wild circumstance have managed to stay in the state of Colorado since then. So got on with Paul Fletcher down in Colorado Springs, learned all my weightlifting through him. Fantastic individual. Interned at the NSCA, the USOC, at the Air Force Academy, got on at DU, spent a long time at DU, and then job opened up at CU, and I've been here for 7.5 years now. So
nice.
Yeah.
So you worked obviously with Scott Caulfield at the NSCA. Hey, Josh is in my picture now. You
we'll be there in a second.
Who were you with at Denver?
So when I started, Catherine Whartonby was the head strength coach there, and I attribute a lot of just getting my foot in the door from her. I kind of just pounded on her door, and she allowed me to come in. And
I'm not familiar with her. Where's she at now?
She's at IMG Academy.
Oh, nice.
So, and then Matt Shaw, who is now the director at DU, was there, and he's a great friend, great mentor.
Great guy.
From Matt. Learned so much from Matt. And so got connected through them. Actually, it was at a conference at CC with Kevin Cronin, who's now at UMass Lowell, that I met Dave Foreman, who was here at CU.
Foreman, that's my guy.
Yeah.
I love Foreman.
So Dave got me my gig here at CU.
Nice. It's funny. So here's a great story. Here's our story. You ready for it? So Dave's at VMI now.
Yes.
I was the strength coach of Robert Morris. We were playing VMI. It was the pillow fight of the year. It was 0-19 versus 0-27, I think, that year. We were the 2 worst teams in 1AA football or whatever they call it.
NEC.
And Dave's at the bottom of a hill, and they're getting off their bus. And my assistants had just finished team meal, and they're walking out. It was CJ, who works for me here now, Cody Casper, who's works at a private facility in Ohio now, and they're coming out of team meal. And you know those gators, but for watering plants and trees that they drive around with like 50 gallons of water? And the guy's watering the trees, and he's on top of the hill, and the bus on the bottom of the hill, and my assistants walk out, and the guy gets off the gator but forgets to set the brake, and it's in neutral. So it starts running, downhill to run over VMI's team, getting off the bus. And guys are getting off the bus. They're not thinking a gator's going to be flying at them. Well, my assistants come by, and what do? They're no heroes. They run the other way. CJ this way, Cody this way. Dave Foreman, and you can ask Dave this story, comes in, rips off his shirt, Superman outfit on, jumps in the gator, steers it to safety.
While
saves the lives of the VMI team.
Of everyone.
Because of Dave Foreman, we were able to win a game that year because he saved the game. We went on to beat them 27-0.
Big mistake.
Yeah, they went 0-11 that year.
Yeah.
We went 1-10.
Should have let it hit him.
Yeah, I didn't know you worked with Dave Foreman, but yeah, that's that's the closest story I got for us.
Yeah.
So you've been there. How long you been now at Colorado?
So I've been here for a little over 7 years.
That is a lifetime in strength and conditioning.
It is a lifetime. I was talking with somebody about this the other day. It was actually one of those like, should I be concerned and start looking to move, or am I just, keep sticking it out
Don't
here?
ask me. I'm the guy who, I was there somewhere 12 years, thought I was good, got fired one day, ended up a new job, was there a
Right.
year, and now I'm out of the profession. So don't ask me. I don't.
Yeah,
Where was Canner? Where's Canner work?
Longwood.
Longwood. He's been there forever.
Rick's been there almost a decade now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
like-
it's easier at the smaller school to stay longer. Sometimes
Right.
at a Colorado, at a Pitt, a Penn State, a West Virginia, it's hard to stay because people get fired so much, and
right.
then you get to know the warts there, and then you don't like people, and then you get
Right.
fired or you leave.
Right.
So you worked
Well-
football at Colorado, right?
I did. Really quickly, going back to
Okay, sorry.
One of the reasons I attribute to being so long here at CU is Rick George, our AD, is an absolutely unbelievable individual. And he was hired a month before I was hired, and my joke is that he hired the best person as his first hire. Like, so I have to stay on. But no, he just created this really wonderful culture. And Steve Englehart, who's our director of Olympic, I think he's been here for 10 years now. And same thing, just wonderful people who are just, invest in their own individuals. But on top of that, I grew up in Colorado. I grew up a CU Buffalo fan. Both my sisters went to CU. So being at CU was kind of like this far-fetched dream that happened really early for me. And, just kind of has been a wonderful fit for 7 years so far.
Well,
So,
also, living in Boulder can't hurt.
right.
And that stadium is probably the best looking stadium
I
in
refer
college
I refer to
football.
Boulder as Pittsburgh of the West.
Yeah, one of them is beautiful year round. The other one is gray and
Actually,
rainy.
north
75%
side,
of the time.
specifically north side.
The north
The
side.
north side
Union
of the
Fitness.
West. You need to
is
come
the
visit
Boulder,
Pittsburgh and learn
Colorado.
about where we're at. We're in a very
Brutal.
nice area, but I will tell this story. It's a really cool area. There's some great old houses, but we're in the middle of the city.
Right.
And so I had a Sunday meeting. We were hosting this fundraiser bike ride, and I'm outside meeting with the people, and it's a Sunday at 11 in the morning. We're having coffee and just, talking about the bike ride and how we're going to raise money and companies were getting involved. And all of a sudden here, bang, 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 bang. And one of the women in me looks at me and goes, "Was that gunshots?" And I go, "It sure did sound like them." And it's not like Boulder where, hey, it's people out in the woods shooting at cans or whatever they do out west. We're in the middle of the
Not
city.
Boulder.
I don't- Again, this is how much I know about Boulder.
We can
And-
pretend.
and so then my wife texted me, is like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Federal Street's closed right now, and we're on Federal Street." And I was like our building actually disrupts Federal Street. They put our building at end of the road. So Federal's on that side of us and on that side of us. And so I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And some kid decided he was mad, so he shot a parked car 15 times.
Oh,
Yeah. So, I'm sure that happens a lot in Boulder.
positive of the story, at least it was a car,
No one was hurt.
right? No one was injured.
He was arrested, and he's
Yeah.
probably in prison.
Yeah. There you go.
The morals are don't shoot parked. How about just don't shoot
mean,
things that don't need
Let's
shot?
not shoot things.
Yeah, I'm okay with
Exactly.
that.
We can stick with that. We can stick
I'm okay with that.
it's a
So
good start.
this is why I wanted to get. I wanted to go
Anyway,
here.
so I worked with football.
Yeah, so you're a female working with football. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know I tell every female that's ever worked for me and I've had a ton of them and have had great success in the profession who are doing great things. I would say the downside to being a female is you're going to hit your glass ceiling at your first job. The upside is you're probably going to get a first job because everyone wants to have one or two females on staff. But how many football and men's basketball coaches are comfortable, realistically, saying, "I'll have a female"? Andrea's an exception, and that's a shame. So how, what are your feelings on that? What are your thoughts? And you could tell me I'm wrong if you want. It's just my opinion from what I've seen.
Yeah. So I was, I'm no longer with football.
Mm-hmm.
I worked football for 2 years, and I was the only strength coach that was splitting football and an Olympic. So that was fun, in no less or no more words. But, I think that at first, when you start with any team, no matter what, and, maybe, well, regardless, when you start with any team, right, you have to create that atmosphere. You have to show them right away who you are, what's going to happen, right? You're kind of doing that no matter what. And I've only worked with co-ed sports in general, so I've worked with plenty of men in the past, and the men always respond just slightly different, especially when you're that first female that they've had, right? So now with my male athletes, it's already ingrained, right? So my freshmen coming in have the seniors, the upperclassmen telling them about me in the first place, so I don't have to reestablish this year after year after year, right? But with football, we definitely had to have that a little bit. And the men, I will say, the one thing about football, I loved working football. I really enjoyed it. Great, wonderful men to work with, both the strength coaches and the athletes as well. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of different emotions. There's a lot of different backgrounds, right? But the one thing with the majority of the football players I worked with, and they would share this with me, came from broken homes, maybe just a single parent raising them. And most of the time that single parent that raised them was a female, right? So they're already used to having a strong, dominant female in their life. Mm-hmm. And would share that with me, right? So it didn't feel much different having a female strength coach, right? So, in that regard, and most of those men then would stick up for me when when it looked like maybe somebody else was going to kind of come at me a little bit with that. But, so I had that camaraderie with the team who just kind of stepped in and helped out right away with that aspect. And of course, whenever you have great leadership from the top down, you're going to have good leadership on that team in the first place. So if the coaches are the ones putting me on the sideline, putting me in the weight room with these athletes, then they know that I deserve to be there. So
I think you made a great point there. And I never considered, 20 years doing it, I never considered that a lot of my football players, a lot of my basketball players, a lot of my athletes came from single parent homes.
Absolutely.
And having that female in the room would change that dynamic for them. It's funny.
Also, just think about this. Every college football program I've ever been close to, the strength coach is the mom anyway. The strength coach is the one that the players are the closest to. It's the one that hears all of the shit that's going on. That's kind of the role already. So, that just seems it seems like that would be a no-brainer. I could see some other sports where it might be a little bit more cantankerous, but, football players are a bunch of babies anyway. So, yeah, makes sense.
I'm going to be honest with you. I hate training male athletes.
I've noticed.
They're a pain in the ass. They are a pain in the ass. They have their egos are you can't. And when you said that, something hit me. And I think, I felt differently if I had had more females in the room when I had football. Because I hated training. I shouldn't say I hated. It was my most frustrating. I didn't hate it. I would train, my women's basketball team. The seniors from Robert Morris, where I was at 4 years ago, are now, the girls are now seniors. One of their parents just texted me, just talk about their season. And I said, I live 3 miles from their campus. And I said, the end of the season, I'm going to have all the seniors over for dinner. I love those teams. They're easy to coach. The men's team was always harder to break through because I think they have those walls up. There's a lot of ego involved. And, you made a great point about it. When you have that female in the room, would that help break that down faster? It's something at 20 years I never thought about until you said it. So thank you. You could have told me that 15 years ago, though. I'm just saying. Would have helped me out a little bit. Maybe I wouldn't have got fired.
I think honestly a positive as well is that I did, although it wasn't ideal, I did work Olympic sports, and obviously our athletes intermingle with other athletes, right? So when the football athletes knew that I was coming in, they just asked their other teammates or their other, right? So, this has been your strength coach for the last 3 or 4 years or whatever, however long it was, what's she like? Can we trust her? Is she good? All that kind of stuff. And then already too, we have that relationship when I go in and meet that athlete now who knows or is best friends with so-and-so on this other team. And so there's a little bit more than for us to talk about, right? And it kind of changes it a little bit. And then the second year I was with football, I was pregnant the entire season. I actually gave birth to my son right before the Pac-12 championship game. And so that adds another element altogether with my athletes that I'm quite expecting, is the now, oh my gosh, like you're a real person. You're right. You're not only married, but maybe we didn't know, but now you're about to be a parent and you're still here with us every single day. It changed that dynamic drastically with a lot of my athletes. It like almost created this like really big, intense family atmosphere that, they still talk about, right? They're always curious about my kids. They always want to see pictures. And my seniors who are graduating now were my last athletes that I had before I was pregnant. So they're my last athletes who knew me before I had kids and now, have kind of trailed with me on that. So also being pregnant in that weight room, it changed things in a good way, in a very positive way as well. But
I mean, I think that's what
badass. That's awesome.
I think one of the best parts, and I don't miss much in college strength and conditioning, to be totally honest, which is sad because I love it. Yeah. I loved it. But there's a lot I look back, I'm like, I just don't miss that. But one of the things I do miss is that family atmosphere. The fact that father texted me internationally the other day, and our texts always begin with music talks. There's a heavy metal band from his hometown in Helsinki, and the guitarist died recently. Children of Bodom. And he's a fan. I'm a fan. And then turns out one of our employees here, Ethan, who's a drummer in a heavy metal band, was like, wait a second, they're from Helsinki, and he showed me clubs he used to play in Helsinki and whatever.
That's great.
I miss that, that relationship, that family environment you create with the athletes. And I think the athletes they're willing to be vulnerable with you. And I think when you're pregnant, probably create even more of that, where they see a vulnerability in you. Because I've always said, when you humanize yourself to the athlete, they're going to open up to you. When you screw up and go, my bad, coach did that one, all of a sudden you show I'm a human. Because one of my pet peeves with strength and conditioning is the strength coach comes in and says, this is how it's done, and rah, 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 rah. And it's like...
Don't even get me started.
Yeah, like, I would always say to, like, the young interns, all right, here's your person's late roll. What are you going to do when you're late?
Right.
And they look at me like, well, and I'm like, you probably won't be late. Most strength coaches aren't, but you will screw up, and that's okay. And that's I think where the ego, the frailty of the male athlete becomes harder to coach, and that's why I've always joked that give me volleyball and women's basketball all day, pay me minimum wage, and I'll be a happy strength coach. Give me football and pay me $500,000. I'm like, oh man, I got to deal with these guys again. And I've been in weddings of former football players, but
yeah,
sometimes you still want to choke slam them.
Well, I mean, keeping that, one of the early things I was told in at DU, actually, I think it was by Ian, who's no longer a strength coach, which is a big bummer, but he made a really big point to kind of take me aside and said, if you're not your authentic self here, you're going to change who you are at home. And he's like, and you need to decide which one you want to be. And it was fantastic to hear, because as an intern especially, you get told to coach a certain way. You get told to be a certain way. You kind of, and you don't really know better, and you're kind of excited about whatever this is. You have a little bit of power, but not really, right? So you tend to just go with the flow, right? And say, okay, maybe this is the way I'm supposed to do it. But it's right. I'm not a yeller. I'm not a mean person. I am sarcastic 95% of the time. I like to have a good time. The weight room should feel like a safe space that athletes want to be here. And they should also feel that I'm a safe person to be around, right? And what's better to do that than just to be myself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And at the end of the day, having that piece of information, I go back on it constantly because it's true. Like I tell my athletes this day one, I am a completely open book. You can ask me whatever you would like, and we can talk about life, or we don't ever have to talk about anything outside of lifting some weights, right? And so kind of having that open book too, where, sure, ask me a question, I don't care. Or I'll share some stuff with you. I'll share a funny story that happened with my kids last night, or, different things about my life. So it humanizes you, right? And that's exactly what we're doing. We're in the business of, we're in a business where we are here to support our athletes, which also means that, at the end of the year, they give us a review. It's a relationship, right? And if you get a consistently bad review from 115 people, no matter how good of a strength coach you are, you're not going to stay around long.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Everything is relationship building.
Right.
I've always, and it's funny, I was just talking to one of our front desk people here who was a volleyball player at George Washington University, where I was a strength coach, and she's now in med school at Pitt. And I said, remember this, I work for you. You know, my job when I was a strength coach was to work for the athlete and serve the athlete. My job here is to work for the people that work for me and work for us so that they can make us better. Because ultimately, if the gym does better, we're all going to win. So my job is how can I make their jobs better? And I think similar in a strength coach. One of the beauties of strength conditioning is just that. It's how can you make them better? And at the end of the day, a squat and a vertical jump going up is really cool. But someone just being a better person, that wins the day every day of the week. I'll take that every day of the week. And I've been attacked on that from coaches. And you know what? I made it 20 years in the profession, which is like a record, I think. I don't think anyone ever went 20 years.
At Robert Morris.
No, about 11 at Robert Morris. I was at 8 schools.
But if you add the Robert Morris multiplier, it's like 30 years.
Working in the Northeast Conference
it's a lot.
It's something.
It's a lot.
It's something.
Well, no matter how you want to look at it, we're role models, right?
Oh God, don't ever say that again.
We are though, but and I have to say it because I get told every single year by my graduating seniors, male and female, typically females, just females though.
See, because they're better to coach.
Wonderful having a strong female consistently present, consistently in the weight room, who health standards, yes, but like it's good to see a strong female in a male-dominated world. And having that, like, I'm a mentor then. Like, I'm a role model. I'm someone that they're looking up to, regardless as to whether or not you'd like to think about it that way. But, you know, the majority of our athletes are not going to be professional athletes. They're going to go be professional everything else, right? They're going to be a husband, a wife, perhaps they're going to be a parent. They're still going to be a son or a daughter, or they're going to be a CEO or a manager, whatever it is. And we're helping to build those qualities that, you know, hopefully will help them out in the future. And I tell them this all the time, like, why else do you think I care so much that you have to show up on time? Because you can't just show up to a big board meeting 15 minutes late and expect them to wait for you.
Hey, CJ's not here, but he needs to hear this.
See? He needs
So my
Stop throwing shade at the podcast. It's not nice.
Hold on, I'm going to show the empty mic real quick. No, my assistant, my lovely assistant, who's not here with us today, he has worked for me 4 times. And this was the 4th time that I've hired him. And today me and him had a heated conversation in the office. It was a positive conversation, but heated. And we had a brand new intern in the room. And we just continued with the conversation after half an hour with many expletives and yelling at each other and him telling me I was wrong and I was right. The poor intern's just staring, like kind of pooping his pants a little bit, I'm sure, at this point. Like, wow, this is how things go here. And then we went and got coffee together and it was all good. But he needs to hear to follow the rules at work. That's my point right now. People need to follow the rules, and that's what you're teaching.
You're not going to get me to say one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm trying to egg Josh on
sides.
to pick on my assistant here, and he won't do it, and I'm really upset about this. You
what a
can.
good
You've never
producer
met the
does.
guy. Just imagine a dude with really bad hair next to me. He makes my hair look good.
Okay.
So, you're a strength coach. Tell us about your training. What do you do for training?
Oh, I do shenanigans.
Oh, nice.
There it is. I currently am not really actually following a program, and this is kind of what I need right now in my life. Just get up and do what I feel like doing that day, honestly. And
Lift weights, do things, whatever.
You'll dive into something and have dive into a program to see if it works, or to, mess around a little bit to get stronger, or whatever it is that you want to do with that program. But right now I am lifting 5 days a week. I run 5 days a week. I take the weekends off, and that's pretty much the story of my life. I try to do hang cleans twice a week. I squat almost 4 times a week as my staples, and then, it's either time permitted, whatever I feel like doing that day, body permitted, and it's kind of where I'm at right now.
I love what Cantor said.
I hate what Cantor said.
No, you did too.
I hate Rick.
For 60 minutes a day, do something that sucks.
So Rick Cantor was on our podcast 2 weeks ago.
Almost a month ago.
And Rick started as an intern of mine.
Yeah.
I used to pick him up at Starbucks and drive him up to campus because he didn't have a car and he was an undergrad, whatever. Did a great job. And I said, hey, we're having a GA open next year, but I refuse to hire anyone who only worked for me. Like, you have to get experience somewhere else. If you want an opportunity to GA,
Right.
go down to Pitt. Here's a number. Call the
Right.
guy. He'll hire you. So he got an internship at Pitt, which actually led then to an internship with Yawks down at Auburn. And then he came back and was a GA of mine and moved on. And now he's deputy AD at Longwood down in Virginia. So he's gone from strength coach to, number 2 in charge of a Division I athletic
that's
department.
awesome.
Yeah. And when I said, and Rick, on his wedding day, we deadlifted at the...
I listened to that.
Oh.
I listened to the deadlift.
Okay, yeah. So that was
Yeah.
kind of cool. And when he said something, I said, what's your training like now? And he said, I moved to be fit or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just like, I've been texting him ever since then, like, you're so soft. Mainly because, when you know someone from the olden days,
Right.
and you're like, man,
Right.
15 years ago, me and you were in there and, like, spitting up blood. Like, is this good? I don't know. Keep pushing. I don't do that quite as much anymore either.
This kind of goes along with something I talked to a lot of other female strength coaches about in general, is that, like, what got you into the profession, right? And it's always kind of interesting to just hear other, individuals' thoughts on that. But a lot of men, not to pigeonhole all the men out there, right?
Pigeonhole, it's cool.
Get into S&C because they had a previous exposure in high school or college maybe to weightlifting, and they got really excited about weightlifting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Something that was rewarding, and then it's like, oh wait, I can get paid to do this, right? The majority of the females that are strength coaches that I have spoken with, right, we don't have that similar exposure. Nowadays, in high school, females are getting into performance centers quickly, and it's amazing to see, right? But when I started college, I've never even, that didn't exist, right? It wasn't like a thing you took, like, your gym at high school, you took like a weightlifting class and they like stuck the women in the corner doing like body weight squats. I don't know, right? So we didn't have this prior exposure. So my exposure to S&C wasn't because I had this dire need to have to lift, right? And a lot of that too is like, you were an athlete and then you get exposed to it and then you're like, wait, this is pretty awesome. Like, this is something that I can do a lot with. And so I bring that up because I didn't like grow up with this, like, I want to lift, I want to compete, I want to Olympic weight lift, I want to see how much like I can move, right? It's fun. It's fun to see what the body can do, but it's not this like burning passion of mine. There's a lot of other reasons that I'm in S&C. And so, for me, it's actually still staying athletic. I still play a ton of sports outside of the weight room. So it's, let's see if doing this triphasic program is really going to make me not only stronger, but more powerful. Do I feel better at the end of the day, right? Like, I'm getting old. And so can I still move?
I'm older. Just saying.
Probably not by much. But can I've had 3 knee surgeries. I have 2 herniations in my back, and I can still do all of these fun things, right? And it's just a constant celebration of the fun things that we can do, right?
But it should be fun. I think the beauty of that is the diversity that it brings to the profession too. Because when I got into the profession, my first job was for Buddy Morris. And, Buddy is, well known in the profession.
Buddy.
Yeah. And Buddy does things Buddy's way. And Buddy's the only one that can do things Buddy's way.
Right.
Because most people get fired if they did it Buddy's way. But people want him to come work there. So they say, yeah, you do it your way. And one of the mistakes I made early on is much like, and I'm sure you've seen this as a young strength coach, here's Buddy's way. I'm Buddy's. I worked for Buddy. That's the way. Right. And it took me years to say, wait, no, I can't, because I came up under a West Side philosophy. So everything was based around West Side barbell. How does West Side train? They make the strongest people. I want to make the strongest people. We're going to train like West Side. And it took me years to break that and understand that it doesn't always happen. And I think last time I trained at West Side was about 3 years ago. And I went down, and Louis looked at me and said, "You're a college strength coach, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You don't do stupid cleans, do you?" And I said, "No, sir." And I was like, "I do, but I'm not going to argue it with you because it's a dumb argument, So, so I think having that, having people coming from different walks of life is what strength conditioning needs. It needs more of you. It needs more of people who say, "Hey, I didn't have this burning passion. I liked what I did. I liked working with these young people." And I think it makes the profession stronger. It makes it, and I see a positive change in the profession that way.
Right, right. Well, and to your point of kind of having these like systems that we fall under, and a lot of internships are built around learning these various types of programs, which is very important. I'm not saying it isn't at all, right? Knowing tier system, Westside, knowing triphasic, like having a 531 program, going through it yourself, I think is very important. But then you tend to fall into like, I really enjoyed that. So therefore all my athletes have to do that, right? And so especially as a young strength coach, you kind of go through and then you're like, wait, this looks fun. Now let's try this. Now we're going to get super sport specific, which is another phrase that we just love, right? So let's do like all these crazy things. And then you take a step back and you're like, wait, let's just go back to the foundation. Let's just go back to the basics, right? And sometimes Drew Wilson, who was a football strength coach here at CU. So I was a year under Dave Foreman, a year under Drew with the football program. And Drew did the basics. He's fantastic at the basics. And he actually, working underneath Drew, really brought me back to that. And just took a lot from that, right? Just seeing how strong these men were getting and just movement-wise, just how much like holistic movement was going on just by hammering squat 3 or 4 days a week, you know? And so kind of going back and saying, all right, once again, this was really fun to kind of mess around with all these other systems, but let's once again get really good at these various things. And now, hey, let's have some triphasic or some complexes here, or let's, you know, couple up my hypertrophy day or whatever it might be. All my freshmen are on 531. I don't know. So, you know, kind of just taking, and as you continue to grow, you just evolve a little bit more. And I think that most older strength coaches or strength coaches have been in the profession for a while tend to get back to that, right? Tend to get back to more of just solid, good movement qualities, and just, you know, end all be all lifts that you're just not willing to really sacrifice on.
MT, how much do you think that's important for anybody that's picking up a weight or training in any gym, not just athletes? To keep it basic, stupid, simple.
I mean, it's so important.
Just keep leaning into it. We love it. We love it.
I mean, so, okay, so he won't listen to this podcast, but we have a friend who was a Division I hockey player, and, you know, he just kind of messes around now. He's got his normal 9-to-5 job, and he started working out at his buddy's new performance gym. And so he's been sending me like these videos, and he's super pumped about them, right? And he's my age as well. So he was doing this. He had a cable stack. It's basically a peel-off press. And he was doing like I don't even know. He was standing straight with it, and then he was doing like a 180 jump onto a box while holding out the peel-off press. And he's like, look at this awesome new move. And I write back to him, and I go, what is that making you better at? And he goes, I don't know, like totally like tore apart my core. And I was like, did it? I was like, tell me how you feel tomorrow, right? So then we kind of had this back and forth, and he was like, but it was really sick. And I was like, so what's your point? I was like, so now you can do something weighted with like a half turn? I was like, and that makes you more fit? Does that make you feel better about yourself? Does that make you better at hockey, men's league hockey, mind you? Right? So, you know, and I think that there is, with the introduction of CrossFit getting as big as it was, with social media pushing out all these, you know, fitness gurus or whatever we want to call them, it's gotten people excited about working out. And that's amazing. And I never want to take that away from anybody. It's amazing. If you are now gung-ho and you would like to work out and you've never done it before in your life, awesome. Keep doing that awesome thing that you're doing. Am I going to sit here and say that's the best thing for you? Probably not. Right? Like if I was not a strength coach myself, would I still be doing power cleans and hand cleans? Probably not. Right? And so, you know, just taking a look at like that big picture, but the basics, that's all it is. We're just glorifying the basics, but the basics get boring, and people don't want to do boring, right? They want to do something that looks really cool or sexy and like, right? Like I could post this on my social media and I might get 10 more followers. I don't know. It sounds a little simple of me, sorry. But
you're right.
Getting back into the basics, especially with our athletes, is so important. And a lot of the times when they come back from long breaks, they'll be like, I got really into this, or my, you know, performance coach at home like had us do this. And I'm like, that's really cool. Guess what? We're going to front squat motion today. And they're like, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, that's great.
Yeah, well, we're front squatting. It's funny. We had
I'm doing that today.
we had a member come in. So we have our gym's kind of broken up, in our performance lab, which is actually in another building. We have our outdoor turf there. Actually, a good friend of ours did our turf, Marissa.
Oh,
She was out here.
Marissa.
They just did our new outdoor turf area. But we had one of our members came in, and he has a newborn, and that area's blocked off for certain people. And this guy had come to me and said, hey, I have a newborn. I don't want to be around people. Can I sneak in over here? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And nice guy, Brian. And he said, I was told to ask you something. I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, you hate an exercise. And I thought he was going to say core, because I hate when people are like, yeah, blast it in the core. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
And he says, burpees. And I was like, yeah, I hate burpees. He goes, why do you hate burpees? I said, because it's the lowest common denominator. Like, it is what you do when all you know how to do is make someone hurt.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with doing a burpee and up, down, here, and there. But if that's your go-to move, like, if that's your go-to move, you're not picking anyone up with that go-to move because it sucks.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's just not a go-to. The basics are, squatting, lunging, pressing, pull-up, these things. Burpees are dumb. And, again, I've had people do them on a rare occasion.
Of course.
They're a great reminder, if we will.
You stopped yourself mid
yeah.
word there, Hammer.
But like I would always have football come in and begin with 10 up downs as a team on them. They count them out. Just something to rah-rah them together. It wasn't exercise. It was just a team thing that we're going to count this out together. We're going to do it together. Your teammate's going to give you, and every day we'd come in and start running in place. I'd say, this guy has it. Celis, you got it today. And then Celis would down, 1, down, 2, whatever. But as far as programming them, I mean, come on. So that was just my rant about burpees that you made me think of, and I had to tell that story. But they're the worst. Sorry.
Speaking of a funny story, so my husband doesn't lift, which is comical, right?
I don't like him.
I'm the lifter of the family.
He's a hockey guy. He's okay in my book.
Guy.
He's a bro.
No.
Yeah, he's all right there.
How's his mustache?
Or his beard. Or his flow.
As I have all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll let her talk now.
He plays a lot, and we both actually play a ton of tennis now, which is our new fun sport of the last 7 years. Not new by any means, but anyways, we were driving by, I don't know, some gym the other day, and obviously they had their clients outside, and they were doing burpees, and not even prompted, he looks at me and he goes, "Why are they doing that? Why don't you tell me what you think about that exercise?" And obviously he knows what a burpee is. He's not like an idiot. And he's like, "I don't understand why you just wouldn't do some good quality squat jumps and then some good quality push-ups." And I was like, well, you said it, not me, and case closed.
There you go.
He's like, if you're going to do it, why not just do those two things? And I was like, there you go.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, lowest common denominator. Like, simplest thing, like, here we go, got nothing left. Let's just fall down to this one. Well,
Right.
Well, so, what, kind of last big question here I got for you, last big thought is piece of advice, young coach, young professional, young person, what do you give them? What are your go-to advice that everyone needs to hear before they go out in the world and make their mark?
Don't be a strength coach.
Other than that, I say that all the time. And remember, I'm the one not a strength coach here.
Honestly, be yourself. Be yourself, right? Don't be an asshole.
Too late. I failed.
So, no, but I don't know. Like taking your drive, taking your passion, doing something useful with the knowledge that you've been given. But at the same time, there's so many people who are willing to help you. There's so many people who want to see you succeed, and there's so many people who are going to open up these avenues for you, right? So in terms of expanding your horizons, expanding your network, right? And your network shouldn't just be in our cases, just other strength coaches or other people in our profession, right? You should definitely have someone in your network who's straight business, right? Maybe and someone who's in finance, right? Someone who's perhaps a doctor, right? They're going to have a different perspective on what we do in general. And especially on the days where you just can't handle what you're doing anymore, you feel that burnout coming, right? Talking to other professionals, because other jobs go through the exact same kind of thing, right? But they have a better idea in terms of taking a look at what we deem, right? So it feels sometimes like the walls are closing in on you, right? No matter what profession you're in. And having somebody who's not in that profession at all take a look at your situation, your issues, your problems, and oftentimes they remind you of the really, really positives that you are still given at your job, or they'll give you a different way of thinking about the problem that you're currently in. The other piece of advice I always tell young coaches is there's a problem with everything. You're going to have a problem with everything, right? And they're going to continue to come at you. But if you don't have a solution for anything, you're just a bigger part of the problem, right? So before you go out and say, all right, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue, well, what's your plan to turn that around? How are you going to present that to administration, to your coaches? How are you going to present that to your athletes? Because if you just consistently are the person who likes to point out problems without being the one who likes to help guide in solutions, you're also just going to become muted to all these other individuals that you're trying to get assistance from. And so oftentimes then tapping onto the outside network, right, is super helpful, right? In terms of you have no idea what it is to be a strength coach, but you know what it's like to be in business. So can I come at you with this problem that I've got? How would you go about this in your line of work, right? And maybe that's going to help me over here in my line of work. That was 15 different things that I just threw out there.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't remember who said it, but it was, I'm not going to get the quote right, but it was something along the lines of, growth in your profession doesn't happen from within your profession.
Right.
It's someone from an outside profession. Something I think strength. There was a book called Sway, The Irresistible Pull of Irrational Behavior. Love that book. And in that book they talk about big plane crash. 2 planes crashed into each other, 300 people died, terrible thing. And how after that plane crash, and I think it was in the late 70s or 80s, that became there. Now there's a book there, and when they're taking off, the co-pilot has the ability to override the pilot without, questioning his or her authority, but just saying, did we do A? Did we do B? And I've said for years that strength and conditioning would do awesome with a book that said, how do you override without attacking ego?
Right.
Because so often in strength and conditioning it becomes an ego thing. This is my program and my way, and we hear it, Colorado's going to get a new strength coach. And I promise you, within 3 months, I can find your local newspaper, the Boulder Gazette, whatever it is, and there's going to be an article. Yeah, there's going to be an article that says, change in Colorado strength and conditioning. The team's leaner and stronger and faster because of this new strength coach.
Yep.
And there was also an article when Drew got there
Yep.
that said, new strength coach here, Dave Foreman's out now, and Drew's in, and team's faster and leaner and stronger. And they probably did get faster and leaner and stronger because they had a new training stimulus. And that's not putting, both of those guys are great friends of mine. I love both guys, and I'll text both right after this because they're both great people, but they're both very good coaches and care about their athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the things strength and conditioning needs. But my second point to that is the person who I think is the best at doing that in the profession is Eric Cressy. And that's what makes Eric so good at what Eric does. He knows, and I've been lucky enough. I met Eric when we were both the young up-and-coming guys in the profession, and we spent a lot of time together. And learning from him, he'll say something about business portfolio. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, oh, well, my business manager told me to do this. And my accountant told me to do this. And my this, and my business partner, my this. And I'm like, you have a team around you? And that's honestly kind of how Josh ended up here. It's like, wait, I don't know anything about podcasting. And then Josh started bringing cameras and computers in. You use the people around you who know things.
Right.
At the University of Colorado, I guarantee I've read at least 2 books by someone who works there. Because they have geniuses there, and I like to read books from smart people. At every university you have amazingly smart people, and take advantage of that. So that's my add-on to kind of amen to what you said. Don't do burpees. Talk to smart people. Do some things.
Well,
and don't forget to bench press. Kids.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? I know.
No, I'm
Take
done.
your time.
I'm done speaking.
It just tags on to what you're talking about, but communication. We talk a lot about communication, but still people are so bad at communicating, right? And I think that especially in the strength world, when you're dealing with men and women, right? Men and women communicate very differently. And this is something that we consistently forget what we need to be reminded on. I have been taught so many great communication lessons by my male colleagues, mainly because I'm the only female strength coach here at CU. I've been our only female strength coach for the entire time that I have been here. So when I communicate on a daily basis, I am only communicating with my colleagues one-on-one with men. My bosses are all men, my superiors are all men, everyone's a male, right? And it's different, right? I'm a super direct individual, but being a direct female is very different than being a direct male. And it has to do with perception, yes, but it also has to do with, right, women think about, oh, well, the tone of their voice, or what else were they implying, or what else is happening. And maybe men do this a little bit, but I think that men are just a little bit more, these are the words, this is what I heard.
Neanderthals.
Right?
We're men. We're just, I don't know here, food.
but that's how my husband communicates too, right?
I'm a moron.
There's nothing loaded in my husband's communication other than like, I'm just asking you to take out the trash, right? Or whatever else that communication might have. And that's something that I have taken from my male counterparts, is taking the emotion out of my communication and out of what I'm listening to. Right? And just listening exactly to the words that they're choosing and exactly what they're telling me to do, and then doing the exact same thing, right? Especially when you're really wanting to get something done. You know, no joking, no sarcastic comments, which is super hard for me on a regular basis, right? Not to make all the time, right? But this is what I need you to do, and I need you to have it done by this time, right? Giving clear, concise direction. And I manage as well. I manage strength coaches. So making sure we have deadlines on things. We know when things are due, rather than, if you could just get this done at some point. Nope, I need this done by Wednesday. Let me know if you have any other questions. Let me know if I was unclear in what I'm asking you to do, right? And so I think a lot of times that communication plays into that ego factor of people just, thinking a little bit too much about what's actually being said, rather than the physical words that are being said, and just, defining by those words. But okay, one more thing and then I'm done, I promise.
Go.
Your point, though, of, I don't know, with Drew and Dave and about a new strength coach coming in, right? So the newspapers are all kind of saying that. It made me think of this fantastic quote that I love. It's a little sinister, but the same crowd that celebrates your coronation cheers at your execution. And you always think about that, right? I always think about that in terms of like the people who will celebrate me going certain places will also probably cheer when I'm gone and somebody else is coming back in to take that position, right? Nobody holds alliance to you other than you yourself. And so you need to also back up you yourself on a consistent basis. Like, what are you consistently bringing to the table, but also how are you making yourself better? Because no one else is going to do it for you, right? How are you making that next step for yourself? How are you building your empire, right? In terms of how can you make your podcast better? Well, let me go find somebody who knows how to do this with me, right? And that's making your empire better for yourself.
And I think, to end with one additional point to that is strength coaches, I hear this all the time, I got this job and they asked me if I'd commit to 2 years. And I say, did they give you a 2-year contract? I go, no. I go, then why you're committed to tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And that's something I think when I left my last job, I'd only been there a year and a half, and a few people were very upset about it. And I was honest. I gave them 2 weeks. I recommended someone to take my position who is there now. But at the end of the day, you don't owe them. And I don't mean that, like you said, you have utmost respect for your athletic director, but at the end of the day, when time comes and either you decide to leave or they decide, it's time for you to leave, no one owes anyone. It's a business. And people just, I think, need to appreciate that. Well, hey, thank you for being here with us today. We had some good stories, talked about the good old days. A lot of friends in common. But it was awesome. And go Buffs. And whenever you guys play in Pittsburgh, any sport, take the trip. We have bad skiing and good mountain biking here.
There you go.
Beer.
We'll bring the good skiers. How about that?
And we have 4 refrigerators in this gym, and every single one has alcohol in it. Just saying. By the way, being in the private sector is like being a strength coach, but you're allowed to drink.
There you go.
I mean, come on.
That should be a plug for anybody who's looking to make that transition.
Yeah, like you're allowed alcohol at work. Wait a second, what?
I mean, no, not here.
Wait, yeah, well, I don't know what we're talking about.
Right.
I might have been drinking.
Wrap up the show. Hannah.
Wrap it up. Cut. All right. Well, hey, thanks
go
for being
home,
with
Hannah.
us. MT, Colorado. Everyone
Thank
become
you.
a Buffs fan now. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for having me on.
Bye-bye.